It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Addicts often hide their addiction from their family, friends, and coworkers. But it's rare that an addict can hide an addiction for 15 years while making an impression on partners in a high-pressure New York City law firm. Yet that's exactly what today's guest, Lisa Smith, did. By the time Lisa admitted herself to rehab, she was consuming an entire bottle of wine and 3 lines of cocaine before heading to work in the morning. Lisa is the author of Girl Walks Out of a Bar, in which she shares the story of her fall and subsequent recovery. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Lisa, you describe yourself as a girl who had it all. You're obviously intelligent. You had a successful career. You are not the image that we have of an addict. So how did your life get so out of control?
I think that it really started from almost the time I was a kid. There was alcoholism and depression and anxiety issues in my family, and I think I inherited some of that. And as a kid, I used to soothe myself with food at first, not knowing why it made me feel better, but just knowing that it did make me feel better. And I continued to sort of self-medicate my insecurities with alcohol and drugs as I grew older. And then when I continued to do well. I continued to do well in college, and I was on the law review in law school, but I was never happy, and I always felt like there was something wrong, that I wasn't like other people, and I continued to self-medicate. And then when I landed at a big New York City corporate law firm, I ended up in a role that I hadn't expected or hadn't signed on for. That sort of was the breaking point where I got overwhelmed, and just my own internal feelings of inadequacy and feelings of I'm a fraud and everybody's going to find out. Somehow I made it to this point, but I don't deserve to be here. It was something I started drowning out more and more regularly, nightly really, when that started with alcohol and later drugs.
So Lisa, by age 25, you were drinking to the point of blacking out. So did this start in college and law school, or would you describe yourself as a quote-unquote normal college student?
It's funny because I do think of myself as a normal college student because I wasn't the only one. But if I look back, I sort of found the people who drink like you do. Right. In college, it got sort of steadily worse, and I was a person who couldn't wait for the party to have a drink. I had to take a beer into the shower with me because I needed to start, because I might not get enough, I needed to start ahead of time. And by 25, that's when I really started blacking out and going to work.
Lisa, were you drinking during the day at work? I mean, you had a job that you needed to be sharp. How were you doing this?
I didn't drink during the day at first. It's a progressive disease, alcoholism, and I began drinking every night quite early on, and then I started drinking at lunch several years later when I was actually not living in New York City and extremely unhappy. That was when that sort of next step towards finding people who would go out and have a glass of wine at lunch. They might have one, I might have 3. And then later when I came back to New York, that just continued, and I would go by myself out to lunch to go somewhere to drink. And then, as the progression goes, one morning I woke up with such a brutal hangover that the only way I knew how to feel better was to drink, and that's how my morning drinking started.
So, Lisa, most people look at drinking in one light, but then you made that transition to cocaine use, to drug use. Is that a natural progression, and did it feel different to you when you went from drinking to the world of drugs?
Drugs had always been around since my teenage years. I first tried cocaine at 15, I smoked pot when I was younger, but alcohol was always my first love. I would always rather have the alcohol. By the time I needed something to get me through that would allow me to continue feeding my addiction to alcohol the way I needed to and to show up for my job, I already knew that, just from my history, that I could turn to cocaine to do that. And I landed in a spot where I was hanging out at this kind of a dive bar where it was all over the place if I needed it. And I started using it not as, hey, let's, have a great fun night out on cocaine, but hey, let me use some cocaine so that I can straighten myself out, show up for what I need to, and continue to drink more without getting sloppy, without getting seemingly drunk. I could hide being drunk by countering it with cocaine.
What was your life like at your lowest point? How much were you using, and what was happening to you physically?
Oh, it was terrible. My lowest point, really for the year and a half approximately before I got sober, was when I really sunk into 24/7 alcohol and cocaine. I couldn't go to sleep, and I was using a lot of cocaine, so I didn't sleep a lot, but when I was going to sleep, I had to put on the nightstand either a glass of vodka or a glass of wine or something, because I knew that when I woke up, I would be shaking so badly and sweating so badly, just really, really not appealing, and unable to get out of bed without throwing that first drink down to calm my system. So it would look like that in the morning, and then I would need to, drink a little more. I could get myself going, but then it was time to start getting ready for work, and I needed to show up. Then I would find myself, I'm getting a little bit loopy from, 2-3 glasses of wine in the morning already. I better do some cocaine to straighten it out. And then I would pack it in my bag when I went to work.
What made you finally say to yourself, enough, I need to get help?
It was interesting because it wasn't any great epiphany. It wasn't somebody did an intervention. I was doing really well in the office. I had just gotten a big raise and bonus. My family and friends, I had sufficiently isolated them, and under the guise of, I'm working so hard, so that I didn't see a lot of them. So they weren't in my presence unless it was like a very controlled thing where I could, say, go out to dinner with my friends, have a couple drinks. We all go home, and I continue doing what I do, drinking and drugs. I limited the time with my family. So they didn't know. But one day I woke up, I was throwing up blood. I was I was like that sort of a bloated alcohol and skinny cocaine at the same time. It was very hard. I couldn't stand up in the shower anymore. And it was a Monday morning, and I was getting ready to go to work. I got ready to go to work, and I walked out the door. I'd finished the last of my cocaine, and I thought, oh my gosh, I got to call the dealer again. I got to get out of work. And I just, all of a sudden, it just all hit me. I kind of felt, I think it was like an anxiety attack. I thought, is this a heart attack? Have I finally overdosed? Am I going to die? And I just said, I can't do it. And I'm done. And instead of hitting the down elevator button, I went back inside my apartment, and then I called a friend who was downstairs in the building and said, I need help.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take for you to move through that initial recovery, and how long have you been sober?
Well, I've been sober for 12 years,
mm-hmm.
and the initial recovery I needed when I called my doctor to find out what I could do that morning, and I knew I had to go somewhere immediately or I would back out. I went to a detox. I sort of inadvertently checked myself into on a 72-hour cycle on a detox at a psych hospital here in Manhattan, and spent 5 days there. I had to have a medicated detox inpatient for 5 days, and they were very strong with me as sort of getting to the end of that time. Where are you going to go next? You got to go for 28 days. There's this place, that place. And I said, oh, no. I told my office this week that I'm out with a stomach problem. I'm going back to work. I'm not telling my office
mm-hmm.
what happened. I'm not telling my firm. And we sort of came to an agreement that I would go to an intensive 2 nights a week outpatient instead, because I wasn't willing to go away. I think that is a terrible thing, and that's one of the things that I'm hoping maybe this book can help to sort of break that that stigma a little bit, because I don't recommend anybody. I did, in fact, go right back to work. And I mean, thanks to my amazing support system, and I really attribute it to the fact that I hadn't lost my job, I hadn't lost my apartment, I hadn't lost these other things, I was able so far to not relapse. But for somebody who was in my position and then checking in, I would say go for as long as you can. And, this is what to me is so important about breaking the stigma. It's interesting because, I had seen plenty of people, if you break your leg or you have bunion surgery, you're out for a number of weeks. If you have a baby, you're out. And everybody's all excited for you for however long you're out. But I had never seen someone take a medical leave to go to rehab. And in a big law firm, I certainly wasn't going to be the first one.
Lisa, with the stresses of today's society, do you think that it's more common for people to be using than we realize?
Oh my gosh, yes. Absolutely. And it's interesting that in February, I actually wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post on this. A study came out that was conducted jointly by the American Bar Association and Hazelden and Betty Ford, and found that 1 in 4 employed working lawyers has a substance abuse issue, and it's predominantly alcohol. The number's shocking. It's twice the normal population. It's more than the number that's at least been reported by physicians or by any other profession. So I think that there is a lot of stress. I think law firms attract personality types that are very intense, and some of them just aren't fitted for the for the role, like myself. But yes, I think that there's way more going on than people realize.
Lisa, you said that you were able to hide it very well from the people that you love. So, and I ask this because we have so many kids today that are using. They're using heroin. It's an epidemic. There's so much going on. So if someone is great at masquerading it, how can a loved one tell what's happening in that person's life? What are some of the warning signs?
I think it's tough. The warning signs are not always so obvious. I think there are the obvious ones if you see sort of changes in mood, in behavior, attitude, changes in appearance, physical appearance, getting sloppy when they used to be more put together. Looking tired, feeling, notably tired, a weight gain, a weight loss, some sort of change in something that you might not attribute to a potential drug problem is probably worth getting to the bottom of, because it may or may not be an addiction issue yet, but it could be a depression or another issue that a person runs a risk of developing an addiction as a way to self-medicate that. Both mental health issues and addiction issues really coexist quite frequently.
The book is Girl Walks Out of a Bar. If you would like to learn more about Lisa and her story, you can visit her website, lisasmithauthor.com. Lisa, in our final moments, what is your advice to someone who's in trouble?
I would say take advantage of the truly confidential resources that are at your disposal. As I mentioned, the stigma in law firms, the stigma in professional organizations is real, and but what people aren't educated on as much, and that I'd like that to happen, is that there is confidential help out there to just start talking. Almost all employers have an employee assistance program, which is a confidential service you can call and get referrals to speak to someone, a therapist or someone else, and those services are truly confidential. People call them for these kinds of issues. They also call them, for things like I'm struggling with grief after my father's death, or I'm caring for a mother with Alzheimer's. The other thing I would say is there are people who've gone through it that are out there that you can call. Just talk to them. There's no obligation ever to do anything. By reaching out and just getting a little more information and getting connected on what you might think about doing, it just can sort of help you understand that you're not alone in this. I felt so alone because I had no idea these resources were out there, and I want people to feel that there is help and they can do it in a way that is not going to in any way impact their day-to-day work.
Lisa, thank you so much for being here. Sharing your story will help so many people take the first step to sobriety and healing. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your having me. It's an honor.
We'll be right back. Hi, this is Joan Herman, host of Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Did you know that Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life has a free monthly digital magazine that can be read online or emailed to your inbox? Every month, nationally recognized leaders in their field provide information to educate, inspire, and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. Check out a copy of Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life 24/7. Visit cyacyl.com and be sure to tell your friends. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided are the opinions of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read the digital magazine, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.